I thank you for joining us for RRG News, the Riverian Research Group. I am your host, Dr. Derek A. Reeves, and let's begin with the news. Our first story deals with an Arizona mother of decapitated children charged in their 2020 killing. This story was written and it comes from the Associated Press, Lancaster, California. An Arizona woman accused of killing her two children who were decapitated in their Southern California home last year has been arrested at her Tucson home, authorities said Wednesday. Natalie Rothwell, 44, was taken into custody Tuesday and was being held at the Pima County Jail pending extradition to California, the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department said in a statement. This was submitted September 29th, 2021. Our next story is that a child dies from rare brain-eating amoeba found at Texas splash pad. This was submitted September 29th, 2021 by the Associated Press. Arlington, Texas, a child has died after being infected with a rare brain-eating amoeba that was found at a Texas splash pad. He had visited a review discovered lapses in water quality testing at several parks, officials said Monday. Officials in Arlington, located between Dallas and Fort Worth, said the city and Tarrant County Public Health were notified on September 5th that a child had been hospitalized with primary amoebic meningitis encephalitis, a rare and often fatal infection caused by the Naegleria fowler amoeba. The boy was not identified by officials. He died at the hospital on September 11th. After learning of the child's illness, health officials began investigating and closed all of city's public splash pads. City officials and the Center of Disease Control Prevention confirmed the presence of the amoeba in the water samples from the Don Misheimer Park splash pad on Friday. Our next story coming up is Ecuador riot. Prison riot leaves 116 dead. Country's president declares prison emergency. Quito, Ecuador. Ecuador's president had declared a state of emergency in the prison system following a battle among gang members in a coastal lockup that killed at least 116 people and injured 80 in what authorities say was the worst prison bloodbath ever in the county. Officials said at least 5 of the dead were found to have been beheaded. President Guillermo Lasso decreed a state of emergency Wednesday, which will give the government powers that include deploying police and soldiers inside the prison. The orders came a day after bloodshed at the Litorotol Penitentiary in Guayaquil that officials blamed on gangs linked to international drug cartels fighting for control of the facility. There is much violence going on and many things that are transpiring, and it's important for believers to look at the things and the events because each of them are lining up with something significant in the scripture. Let's move on. Ex-police officer says he was the 1990s Paris serial killer in suicide. Note, DNA confirms. This story is by Scott Gleason of the U.S. Today. A former French police officer confessed in a suicide note to being the serial killer who committed a series of rapes and murders in Paris during the 1980s and 1990s, according to multiple French media reports. Francois Véron fatally overdosed on Wednesday after he was called in for questioning to submit a DNA sample by police. His DNA was tested upon his death and confirmed him to be linked to several of the deaths, ending a 35-year-old hunt for the killer, according to the French news outlet Le Point Le Parisien. The serial killer, known locally as Le Grelais, pock-marked killer, was hunted for the last several decades after his murder and rapes drew chaos through Paris from 1986 to 1997. Our next story. A bat bit a man while he was sleeping. He died of rabies a month later. This was submitted by Aisha C. Gilbert, September 29th, 2021. An Illinois man was bitten by a bat in his sleep, and later died of rabies, the first human case in the state of Illinois since 1954. The man, who was in his 80s, woke up with a bat on his neck in mid-August and declined treatment for post-exposure rabies, the Illinois Department of Public Health said in the press release, warning people of bats that could be in your home. A month later, the man began to experience symptoms associated with rabies exposure, including neck pain, headache, difficulty controlling his arms, fingers, numbing, and difficulty speaking. The bat was captured and tested positive for the disease. The man died a short time later. The Center for Disease Prevention and Controls confirms the diagnosis through testing on that Tuesday. Our next story. Devious licks as students via TikTok to smack a staff member. The nation's teachers are feeling burnt out. Alia Wong for USA Today submitted this on October the 1st, 2021. This is going on, it seems, all through the nation, and principals are cracking down on this new dare. Educators across the country are already overwhelmed with the chaos that is teaching during a pandemic. As if that weren't enough, now they're contending with a different kind of chaos, a TikTok trend that encourages students to cause havoc on campus. This month, that havoc could reach a new level, resulting in physical violence against teachers and other school employees. And the prospect has already demoralized educators, increasingly worried about the sustainability of their profession as it stands. In September, its inaugural month, the so-called devious licks trend challenged students to steal and vandalize school property. Teens across the country were arrested. According to a list that has been circulating outline, this month's challenge is to smack a staff member. Challenges for subsequent months range from mess up school signs and flip off the front officer or the front office to kiss your friend's girlfriend at school and jab a breast. And so many things are again transpiring, and I believe that in many cases, some things can be moved and inspired by hidden entities, as well as the entity that is controlling the climate of our society. And now for our final story of the day. London police officer gets life without parole for abducting and killing Sarah Everhard. London. A former London police officer was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole Thursday for the kidnapping, rape, and murder of a woman he tricked into his car using his police identification and COVID-19 laws. Wayne Cousin, 48, was accused of falsely arresting 33-year-old Sarah Everard for the violating lockdown restriction as she walked home from visiting a friend in South London on March 3rd. Prosecutors said Cousins, who was on the Metropolitan Police Force at that time, handcuffed Everard, drove her far outside the city, then raped and killed her. He had pleaded guilty to all charges. I thank you for joining us. This has been RRG News. I am your anchor, Derek A. Reeves, and join us next time. God bless.